Welcome to the Bastrop Podcast. Real people, real stories, all from right here in Bastrop, Texas. I'm your host, Matt Walker, a local business owner, realtor, and entrepreneur with Wisdom House Realty Group and Bastrop Drone and Media Company. We sit down with the locals shaping our community, from the mayor's office to Main Street shops, and bring you the voices behind the town we call home. Today's guest is John Kirkland, Bastrop Mayor Pro Tem, and we're talking about everything from how city government works and how you can get involved, to raising a family in Bastrop, and even a few surprising hobbies you wouldn't expect. Today, we met at Chestnut Grove Food Truck Court on a bustling lunch day. You might hear the lively background sounds of happy Bastropians enjoying their meals and conversations under the covered seating area. John, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me to come talk with you today. I'm kind of excited about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for agreeing to, chat with me.
Yeah.
Right now, you're mayor. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of being mayor?
I'm not actually the mayor. I am the acting mayor pro tem. I'm a council member. I'm running for re-election right now to place 5, my council seat on the city council. The last 2 years, the city council has elected me as the mayor pro tem. And mayor pro tem, my joke is that pro tem means break glass in case of emergency. I'm basically the backup mayor just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of those just in case things happened in January. And so I am filling out the remainder of this year or until the next election, until the town can elect a new mayor. And so I'm sort of the acting mayor, or maybe even the pretending mayor. One of the things I find most interesting about being in that role, the mayor of Bastrop, we have a form of government known as a weak mayor system. And so the mayor is largely a figurehead, but a very well-respected figurehead. And so when I go places, it's relatively common for people to respond like, "Oh, it's the mayor." And then even, I'd almost guess there's a 50% chance if I walk into a space with a microphone that I get handed a microphone. So I need to be able to say 2 minutes of something and just make it up. I enjoy doing the Farm Street Opries as the master of ceremonies. I don't just enjoy it. I love it. And I've been doing those ever since I joined city council. And so that's not a pretending mayor thing. That's simply, council member thing. And all of the council members that want to do it get the opportunity to do that as well. Yeah. I think it's really rewarding. People have different styles for how they kind of represent people that govern. And it just comes from what got them there and what's important to them. But my style is based upon individual needs. So when someone contacts me and says, "Hey, I need help with this," and maybe it's just a question, or maybe it's an honest to goodness, "Hey, the city's not doing this right, and can you help?" And the answer is yes. Let's take a look at it together, and let's look at the rules and the law, and let's look at what's happening in your situation. Let's talk about how they all fit, and if the city's doing what it's supposed to, then it is what it is, and I can help explain it, the background, the reasons, and then see what the person says. But somewhat often, there's something that the city has done that, needs some minor tweak or adjustment, and maybe it was unfair for that person, and I'm able to fix that. I'm able to bring that to our city manager's attention. I'm able to, help that citizen advocate for themselves, and that's incredibly rewarding because, generally people don't know how to interact with their government just across the board, and I was even in that boat myself. The idea of, no, I'm not going to go to a city council member or to my elected House representative or to someone in the federal government. I'm not going to go to them and ask them for something. I'm not going to write a letter. I'm just going to try to make the best that I can out of whatever situation I'm in. And what I've learned both through this experience and through my interactions with residents is that the elected people, for the most part, do care. And when they're in a place where they can help, they will. And for our city government, I'm in a place where I can help. And so I do every single time. It's probably the most rewarding part.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, you said that you're running and you're currently in council seat 5. What are the differences between those different council seats? Is there any, or how exactly does that work?
Right. So the council seats in Bastrop are all elected at large. Okay. So that means that the entire city votes on all of them each time they're up for re-election or up for election. The number is simply a designation in our town's charter, which is like our constitution, that states that your term shall be 3 years and places 1 and 5 shall be elected at the same time on a 3-year interval. That's basically it. It's just a designator so that we know which place we're in. Sometimes it determines what order we sit in, say left or right up at We call it the dais, but it's just the place where we sit during city council meetings.
Okay.
It means a little bit, but it's not like it is in some other cities. For instance, Elgin, they have numbered wards.
Okay.
And so if you're in Ward 2, then you represent a small segment of the city, and it might only be a small number of streets of people that vote for you, and you may only have 150 people that vote in that ward when it's up for re-election.
And then, so let's take the Elgin versus Bastrop. So is the Elgin council member then looking specifically to represent like those streets that voted him in? That's his group of people that he's representing versus you guys, you're representing all of Bastrop?
You know, that's a good way to look at it. I would say it's to each elected representative to decide how to make that choice. I suspect there would be an element of, well, I'm elected from this neighborhood, and so therefore I need to focus on the needs of this neighborhood first. Bastrop's small enough to where, you know, we do consider all of the neighborhoods and all of the residents when making choices and want to do the best thing for the city as a whole. And I certainly would never say that other council members in Elgin or in Austin, where they have districts or wards, that they're not also looking out for the whole city. But we are in the city of Bastrop explicitly looking out for the entire city.
Yeah, and it's, you know, pros and cons to both sides.
Absolutely.
So it's just interesting and cool to see those different ways that it's done. It's something that I didn't know about. So that's cool.
They also elect their school board like that. They have
Bastrop or
Elgin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Somewhere a while back, they had some event or leaders in their city. I don't even know the history of it, but where that was something that they elected to do, and it's now how they run their governments.
Very interesting. That's cool. Can you share a bit about your background and what brought you to Bastrop?
Oh, well, sure. I grew up in Brownsville, Texas. I moved there when I was, 5 years old or so, and then I left when I graduated from high school. Went to the University of Texas at Austin, got a degree in electrical engineering, and then moved from there after I met my wife. We lived in Pflugerville for just a couple of years, and then 18 years ago, we moved to Bastrop County.
Okay.
We lived in Cedar Creek, and then 6 years ago or so, we bought a house on Main Street for the parades, and we've been watching parades there ever since.
That's awesome. Tell us about raising a family in Bastrop. What has that experience been like for you?
We have 3 children. They are 26, 20, and 15. All 3 of them attended Bastrop Independent School District for out of Cedar Creek.
Okay.
So my oldest daughter graduated from Cedar Creek High School. She was a co-captain of the cheerleading squad there.
Nice.
My middle daughter, Ava, she got admitted to the Colorado River Collegiate Academy, which is here in town. And it was a 40-minute one-way drive, so we decided to start looking for a new place actually in town. And that's what led to us finding our place on Main Street. And so she went to Circa, and then my son, whenever he moved into downtown Bastrop with us, we started with a homeschool program with him called One Day Academy.
Okay.
I would say overall, the community is very friendly. It's very accommodating and loves its children. It's been pretty easy to raise kids here.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the vibe that we've gotten. We've been here for about 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, you have little ones, don't you?
We have 2 tinies, recently turned 5-year-old and a 3.5, and are constantly just hitting up all the different playgrounds in and around Bastrop.
Yeah, we have playgrounds.
So what motivated you to get into politics, and how did you first get involved with the city council?
Well, I used to travel for work. And when I say travel for work, I mean 3 million miles lifetime travel for work.
That's
it was
just a few.
Yeah, just a few miles, yes. Every once in a while, you'll see a contest where they're saying, we're giving away 1 million frequent flyer miles. And I'm like, I already have that. But it was, I would travel to South Korea sometimes twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, stay for 1 or 2 days, and then get back on a plane and come home. Turns out when your customer spends $1 billion a year with your company, they want you on site with things when they need attention. And so I helped with that kind of a role. And when COVID came along, it shut that down. I could no longer travel to other places. On February 1st, 2020, that was my last flight home from South Korea. And then we got to experience what everyone knows as COVID-19. So when I got home, I ended up switching jobs and working for a company that's purely remote, and I don't travel at all anymore. And I had lots of time in the evenings and weekends and such when I'm not working to say, how can I get engaged in my community? And that was just not something that I'd had the opportunity to do very much. I mean, I participated in some clubs and other things where inevitably in the second year there, they would make me their president. But, but this, I just was looking for another opportunity to get involved, and city council presented itself as an option. I met another council person, Kevin Plunkett, and helped him run for office. Met a lot of people, at their front doors, just advocating for Kevin. But then you get into conversations about what their concerns are, and you start to learn, like, okay, I see what the people need in this town, because they're telling me, they're telling me this is what we want, this is what we need. And that sounds achievable. I think I can help make that happen. So
that's cool.
I put my name on the list, and there I am. I'm on city council.
That's awesome. You play bass guitar.
I do.
Do you have any favorite memory associated with music?
I grew up singing in church.
Okay.
I'd sit next to my dad, and he would sing bass. And so I learned how to read music and how to sing bass vocals from my father. I joined the band in sixth grade and learned to play trombone. Again, a bass clef instrument, bass tones, bass, focused. And then when I became a father, my daughter turned 12 years old. She wanted to play guitar. And so I joined her at classical guitar lessons at the Lumberyard at Bastrop School of Music here on Main Street.
Okay.
And I learned to read notes in the treble clef and play those notes like plucking the guitar in kind of a classical guitar style. But, had to know the notes on the frets and the names and the notes of the strings. And then a couple of years later at church, we were in need of a bass player. And we had a bass player, but he wasn't always available. And so I just asked the question and said, hey, if I learned to play bass, could I participate? And they said, well, sure, So I went and bought a bass guitar, and I sat down with it and realized that the strings are the same as a classical or regular acoustic guitar. So I already knew those. And I looked at the music, and I already knew how to play those notes on that instrument. And I knew what bass parts were supposed to sound like, and had quite a bit of background and training in music. And so it took me a week before I was, playing at church, because I wasn't playing great at church, but, I was playing the right note at the right time for the most part. What's kind of funny, though, and because of that background and the path I took, playing, say, trombone and playing individual notes with bass clef music, I could go look over the piano player's shoulder, or just turn to a piece of written music and play the bass line on my bass, sight reading, because that was a skill I learned in high school band. Sight reading was something we were measured upon for competitions. And so it's just something I know how to do. But when I do it, other musicians sometimes think I'm performing some voodoo magic, because it's like, wait a second, those aren't chord charts. How did you do that?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little bit, mediocre, average guitar player, pretty self-taught, cowboy chords all the way. So it's not quite looking at chord charts or being able to read over somebody's shoulder.
But what I find really impressive is when people can play by ear. People can just listen to something and know how to play that on any instrument, bass, or otherwise. They have things in their brain that I lack. It's another way of thinking that I just can't do. I do tend to need to practice a little bit more, write out the actual notes and play it, to practice it in that way. So I know what note I'm playing, and I know why I'm playing it, and I'm doing it on purpose. But, other people do it because, they speak a whole different musician language that I don't have. But I still love doing it because, it's about community, and it's about bringing enjoyment to the people that are listening and interacting with them in that way. And it's always been that for me, even going back to high school band.
That's awesome. Are there any favorite bass players that you listen to a lot?
Oh, you know what? The music I play tends to be pretty easy bass parts. And I've never really developed kind of a favorite bass player. But what I really love to do is go listen to the live musicians here in Bastrop, because the bass players there, there's many of them that are substantially better at it than I am. And so I'll watch them and watch what they're doing with their fingers and the technique they're using. And then I'll go up and ask them questions like, hey, how are you doing that? That looks like something I've never seen before. And then they'll show me slow motion or show me just with only their instrument playing. Sometimes they'll even hand me their instrument and let me try it. And I found that, I don't know if it's just bass players or musicians in general, but they're very accommodating to that kind of a question. And I learned from them, and we got some great musicians here in Bastrop.
That's awesome. There was a concert that happened over this weekend, and they were coming from out of town. They didn't want to bring their guitar. They thought they had a guitar here, but it ended up having a giant hole in the side of it.
Oh my goodness.
So I actually have a couple. So I brought mine over and they tested them out. And so I'm watching him like play some different chords. I'm like, I could do that. So then I go home and I'm like, I just like doodling around on it and seeing what comes about it.
Yeah, one of my jokes that I say to the bass players is like, my bass doesn't do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's almost what I thought you were going to say. Is you playing your guitar? And I'm like, wait a second. My guitar doesn't do that?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of that I have no clue that was even an option that I could do.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about, Bastrop. What do you love most about Bastrop?
I could probably give you several different categories of answers. We have this phrase in city government called authentic Bastrop.
Okay.
So then that leads you to a question of, well, what does that mean? And does it always mean the same thing to every person? What we've kind of landed on as a very fuzzy definition is that it is the feel that you get while standing in our historic parts of town. You see larger homes, you see historic homes, you see big trees, sometimes, more than 100 years old. You see, wider streets, larger lots, and it's peaceful. It looks like it's something that could be in a movie, that's set 100 years ago. And that feeling that you get is what you can refer to as authentic Bastrop. Another element of authentic Bastrop is that the home styles aren't all the same. They weren't all built at the same time. They're not all the same size in that historic area. And so you end up with an eclectic mix. And that's part of authentic Bastrop. Now, one of the neat things that we have here is lots of parades. I live there on Main Street, and the parades run right past my house. And so I have friends over, especially the lighted Christmas parade. When I first moved here, it's funny. We were sitting there for dinner in our dining room, and a parade marched by. And why is there a parade today? It was just... Anyway, one of the things that makes Bastrop awesome is the parades. It's the small town. It's the cheer squads, the marching bands, the floats. I don't know. It just makes you smile.
It's just got this very small town charm to it.
Absolutely.
And that's
really important to me is protecting that small town charm. And the council is working on legislative or, law changes that will help us do that.
And it is interesting because, Bastrop's expanding so much. You have kind of this outer section, but you guys are still kind of preserving this historic downtown section. I'm originally from the East Coast, and we've seen this a lot where you have the cute historic downtown areas and then the expanding metropolis outside. And so I can definitely see that working extremely well. I mean, I guess that leads me to my next question. How do you envision kind of the future of Bastrop?
We are in the 11 to 12,000 resident range right now. And the city is working on a document called a comprehensive plan that lays out how we see the city developing into the future. And if you speculate on a growth rate of about 5%, and it turns into a mortgage calculation, which you're familiar with, right? Or a time value of money type calculation. So it's like, how much money will you have if you have $11,000 or $12,000 and it grows at 5% per year in 25 years? Well, the answer, and I don't recall the precise answer, but it might be like 40,000. Because I did that math in a council meeting one time because someone said that, we estimate that Bastrop will grow at 5% per year for this many years. And so I pulled out the calculator and pulled up the time value of money calculation and the interest rate calculation and calculated that. And it was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have 40,000 people here. And and that's entirely possible. There's a lot of things that we need to do with infrastructure. You've got water and you have wastewater, and then you have roads. Water is the input, wastewater is the output. You have to make sure you have both of those fully satisfied. There is no faster way to lose your head as a city council member than for toilets not to flush anymore. And that's a baseline expectations. You don't get any points for the toilets flushing, but you lose all of them if they stop. And so the state of Texas, they don't allow any city to stop growth or forbid or prevent growth. And in fact, as that growth occurs, we're required to allow it to connect to our wastewater treatment plant. And when our wastewater treatment plant hits 75% utilization, we have to be in planning for building a new one. When it hits 90% utilization, we're required by TCEQ to actually start building a new one. Required, state law required. Planning to make sure that we hit those milestones and are ready for that growth is really one of the most important responsibilities of our city council. That will, that'll mean that over the next, 10 and 15 and 20 years, as Bastrop kind of grows into a grown-up, from a small town to a grown-up city, that we have to be very careful that we're planning that infrastructure well. Because, you can assume there will be growing pains. You can anticipate what some of them are, but some of them will be unknown unknowns. And so at that point, you're going to have to evaluate your best options, be creative, have flexible, competent people, smart people serving on city council that can help decide what to do.
What are we currently at? You're saying 75 have to start planning, 90% start building.
Oh, right. So we just brought online a brand new wastewater treatment plant recently.
Okay.
We had a ribbon cutting, just a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And I think we're at about 10 or 15% flow on that particular plant.
Gotcha.
But the development coming in 2026, at least as far as where we have development agreements and know, if different developers execute to their plans, then we will fully utilize that plant in 2026. It's time to double down and make sure that those developers are serious about what they're doing. We just worked through a ordinance at the last council meeting for them to establish reservations in the wastewater treatment plant. So there'll be a monthly fee associated with that reservation, and that sort of guarantees their place in line. It also helps us be certain that we're planning for the correct volume. Because if they just say we're going to build 2,000 units and then build 200, well, then we've overplanned.
Yeah.
And wastewater treatment plants can cost, 60, 80, $100 million. So you want to plan that one correctly. You don't want to build it before you need it, because then you can't pay for it. So we're working through making sure that the growth estimates are correct, that the people that want to utilize that capacity in the wastewater treatment plants, that they are making the reservations for that. And then we will probably within the next 60 days start aggressively planning a brand new plant. We're looking at new technologies for those plants. Historically, cities would build a wastewater treatment plant from scratch. They would engage a special focused engineering plant to design it from scratch, really. It's like, what are your needs? What does your site look like? What kind of materials do you need to treat, and where's your output going to go? In our case, it's the Colorado River. So that defines the level of cleanliness that the water must be according to TCEQ. The new model that we're going to likely go down, I can't, specifically speak for council, but, it wouldn't surprise me if we approved a completely different model this next time around. And it's more or less a reverse osmosis system.
Okay.
And so a very large filter-based system that allows you to buy it as a single large system. And so you tell the company, I need a 6 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant. And they have an off-the-shelf 6 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant. That is it's not a do-it-yourself kit. They still come and install it. It's still got a lot of parts, but it's pre-engineered. So you don't have to pay what might be $8 or $10 million just for engineering, because they've done it. They sell it, and they sell it as a reusable kit, in effect. And so then they would come and install it. And then it has reusable outputs, meaning it produces water that's actually drinkable. And we can push into city of Austin. I think they use purple pipes, they call it, special pipes that can be used like on golf courses or for different purposes that the citizens don't object to. And in reality, many large cities reuse treated wastewater because their citizens aren't comfortable with them, perhaps treating their own wastewater and reusing it in their own system. So they'll sell it to another city, and the other city will treat it and reuse it as their water inputs, and everyone seems to be okay with that. So human nature and the thought of, wait a second, I know where that water came from, but you know what? All water at this point comes from that.
Just about.
Yeah.
With these potential new developments coming in 2026, does that stay at that 5%, or is that going to be like a crazy increase?
That 5% was kind of a conservative estimate. And, over a 10 or 15 or 20 year time frame, it'll be whatever it is in different years. It wouldn't surprise me if we see faster growth than that in 26, 27, 28 sort of time frame. And the reason why is because there's thousands of new homes that are going online in that time frame. We need those homes in Bastrop. We have people looking for those homes in Bastrop. Housing prices have gone up quite a bit. I mean, as everyone is aware, it's a basic supply and demand problem. So if you can get ahead of the demand with additional supply, there's a lot of people, ready and willing to move into those homes. Yeah, I think short term we're probably going to see higher than that, but long term, the 1 to 3 year time frame and the crystal ball is a little more clear. And then you use that to predict your shorter term moves while helping to make sure that you're paying attention to the longer term moves at the same time. Honestly, one of the big challenges is just how expensive infrastructure is. Water and wastewater, they're achievable expensive, and they're achievable expensive because you have explicit people that are paying water bills, and you can scale the cost of your water plants and your wastewater plants based upon the number of people that you have, so that you spread that out. Also, as development occurs, the developers pay an impact fee for water and wastewater. And that impact fee directly goes to pay for up to 50% of the cost of those new improvements. The remaining 50% is spread across everybody, the existing residents and the new residents at the same time. And so that 50% is spread across everybody, and it's spread across them monthly just by paying their water bill. So there's a mechanism to pay for that. But roads, they're a little more challenging. If you look at the new overpasses that are being built between the city of Austin and the city of Bastrop, they finished the first one. And I don't remember the precise cost of it, but it was on the order of like $70 million for one overpass. If the city of Bastrop, with its $5.5 million a year in property tax and like $12 million a year in sales tax, if it were to stop spending money, fire all of its police officers, not spend a penny on a single employee or any service for any citizen for 5 years, we could afford one overpass. And so the scale of the cost of large roads and feeders and things to move people around the city is almost beyond the scale of what a city our size can pay for. And so we have to partner with TxDOT and grants to try to make those things happen. And we're working through those things. TxDOT also does their 5 and 10 and 15-year plans. And I think that our growth curves are ahead of what they expected them to be. And so we then lobby to move, 15-year projects into 10 and 10 years into 5 so that we can move people around both, the immediate area of the city, but also beyond that into the county that's closest to the city.
Nice. So what is a hobby or interest that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, you know what? My hobby is learning new things. Okay. And that sounds funny, but I pick up hobbies and I learn them until I master them. If it's a community-oriented hobby, I go look for the club. I join the club, and then the second year they make me their president or treasurer or something like that. I'm a sucker for that kind of a thing, it turns out, because I like helping people. But I'm an expert with a yo-yo. I can juggle. I can make some amazing cakes. And each hobby I pick up for a couple of years and do it until I get to a point where I can execute it without learning something new that day. I am a tournament bass fisherman. I joined a Christian bass club in Travis County when I used to live there. And this is over 20 years ago. Those gentlemen taught me how to fish in fresh water. My dad taught me how to fish in salt water, but those gentlemen taught me how to fish in fresh water. In the second year, they made me the president of their club. So I did that for 3 years. I have a workshop full of woodworking equipment and can build furniture. I can do kind of gross carpentry stuff, just building a structure like a chicken coop or something, which I did all the time when I lived out in the country, but also can build fine furniture and finish them and make it look really nice. And I got to the point where I was simply executing a set of steps that I already knew how to do. And so I moved on and, kind of picked up a new thing at that point. My father, who lives in Cedar Creek, has got a very large, let's call it like a cabinet shop. And, every tool that one could imagine, he has professional high-end versions of. And he has made furniture and done woodworking my entire life, even as a child. And so I've learned things from him. And I guess now I probably just go to his workshop because it's air conditioned and it's a nice place to to work, and then I get to work alongside my father, which is nice too.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Who has been, your biggest inspiration in your life or your career?
Wow, I didn't know that question was coming. I've had a lot of people pour into me. My parents are one. My parents both are alive. They live in Cedar Creek together. They've been married 50, oh, make me a liar, 53 years or so, 54 years, somewhere in that ballpark. You know, they raised me in church. And so I've known a lot of good preachers and pastors that have poured into me. Yeah, I can think of pastors that really poured into me and gave me, you know, new purpose and direction in areas of my life when I needed it. And, so those were important. I've got people at work that, you know, poured into me. Even my current boss right now, I knew him in prior jobs and became friends with him. And he's, you know, been an influence over me over the years. And I guess I've been very fortunate to have had a large number of people when the moment that I maybe needed someone, that they were there to help, you know, give a little bit of direction. And because of that, I see how that system works. And I've had people pour into me. I take the opportunity to do the same thing to others. You know, the way this system works, it's generally someone, you know, 20 or more years younger than you. Sometimes it's someone older than you being poured into or the one pouring into. And there's a lot of great mentors in Bastrop. And I'm very fortunate to, you know, both in my role in city government, they seek out the opportunity to come and speak to us and work with us. You know, I covet their prayers, and you're not supposed to covet, but you know, this one is I covet their advice and their prayers, and I seek it out, and it's been very meaningful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think my last question is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about or kind of say?
Goodness. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Bastrop.
So my wife and I, we have two companies that we're building. Wisdom House Realty Group is our real estate company. We're both realtors. And so we're out kind of being the Bastrop realtors. That's where we focus a lot of our area and growth on. And then we also have Bastrop Drone and Media Company. And so with that, you know, any photography, videography, we'll do some video walkthroughs of properties for other realtors, doing drone shots of any land that people are selling. And then we'll do promotional photos and videos as well for businesses or whatever the potential customer is looking for.
Yeah, so. I remember a video that you did, and it was you in it, and you kind of had this like superhero thing where you either flew in or flew out, but it was like, that's cool.
That was a Spider-Man slinging between two buildings, and then it supercut or superimposed to me like landing, flipping out sunglasses and walking off.
No, that was really good. I remember seeing that.
And that's Liana is the social media digital guru. I'm just there as it's fun and cool because she's great at social media, everything. I'm great when it comes to like the contracts side of things for real estate. Good. And so we are able to have this fantastic partnership with our business as we can have it continue to grow, that we each have our strengths and we're able to really delve into those to be the best realtors that we can in the area. And, you know, I've got the drone pilot license. She's great when it comes to editing the stuff on the back end. So yeah, it's a great partnership that we have.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's neat that you can do that with your spouse. And I'm proud of what you've accomplished. That's pretty cool.
It's been fun.
Good. You know, I guess the last thing I'd say is it's hard to describe what it's like to serve on city council. If you're highly successful and you go out having achieved every single thing that you thought that you wanted to achieve, and 90% of the people love you, you still have 10% of the people that hate you. It's the craziest system. You know, I'm up for reelection, and, you know, I think that I've done a good job for the city of Bastrop. But honestly, I still have a few weeks left. And even in that time, I'm here to listen. And when residents hear about the things that we're doing, if you've got a concern, look up my phone number on the city website.
Is that the best way to contact you is through the city website?
Yes, it is. So, you know, I got my phone here. The city phone number reaches me. You can call it. You can text it. There's an email address there. You can send me email. If you have a concern about what we're doing or what we're not doing, let me know. Or if you need help, like I'm having trouble with. And I've helped people in Bastrop, Louisiana, get in contact with the representatives of their city government as they start describing the problem that they're having with a fire hydrant on a particular street name that sounds decidedly French that we don't have in our city. And then I ask, are you calling for Bastrop, Louisiana? And then, well, let's look on the website and let's figure the people that you know. So I love that opportunity one-on-one to help someone, and I will always do that. And,
how many Bastrops are there?
Well, I'm aware of two.
Okay.
And they're both named after the same guy, the Baron de Bastrop. Actually, my wife and my daughter went through Bastrop, Louisiana on their way back to Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, where my daughter's studying computer engineering. It was right after Christmas break, and there was a bad snowstorm up through Dallas. So the typical interstate highway path was snowed in, and you couldn't get there. So they instead, went over towards Louisiana and got directly underneath from the south where they were headed, and then just went straight north and spent the night just outside of Bastrop, Louisiana. And then in the first place they came through, the next morning they took a picture of City Hall or something like a mural, I think, and sent it to me. And it was like, if I remember, Morehouse Parish in Bastrop, Louisiana welcomes you, kind of a thing. And I was like,
that's hilarious.
It's just funny seeing that name there. It's like, oh, that's our name, but but they can claim it as theirs too. So we'll just share it. In fact, I think they are cityofbastrop.com and we're cityofbastrop.org. And so there's always room for confusion there.
Yeah. Still, that is very funny.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time so much, John. This has been a great conversation.
It has. Thank you very much for inviting me to come talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all. This has been Wisdom House Realty Group / Bastrop Patrona Media Company, our inaugural podcast. Appreciate everybody listening, and we will see you guys next time. Until then, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bastrop Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Instagram at wisdomhouse_tx and share it with a neighbor. We're here every week with the new conversations from people who make Bastrop feel like home. Got someone you think we should interview? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you.